Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. And boy, one would think it was going to be a small week. But no, it's another big week. Actually, a lot of new number ones and a lot of returning series. So let's just get started. So first up, we have Alien Aftermath, number one. Excuse me. Written by Benjamin Percy with artwork by Dave Wachter. Now, this is a one-shot story that follows, is kind of a semi-sequel to Aliens, where Vasquez's son is now, in space and working, kind of a salvage crew. And they end up going back to the planet where the planet that LV 426 that the movie Aliens takes place in. So basically it's kind of a continuation, and a big surprise, there's still one alien there. It's a special alien. Apparently after the explosion there's kind of like a nuclear winter, and the alien is kind of taking on the properties of like ice. Instead of acid, he spits like liquid nitrogen, oxygen, something like that, and freezes. Once again, I kind of say with a lot of these, where they try to continue, do stories, Percy does, he does a nice job here on the script. It's all nice and everything, but it really doesn't, I didn't feel it really added anything new to the mythology. It didn't really, you're kind of going back to the well. I mean, it's kind of an interesting like concept, but ultimately it really doesn't, it's nice and everything, but it really doesn't do anything beyond that. I will say, Watcher's artwork's actually really nice. He does a really nice job here, and it looks really great. And of course, he does a nice job of, capturing, some of the sets and things from the Aliens film, but ultimately, it's nice. If you're an Aliens fan, it's fine. The one nice thing, it is a one shot, so it's one and done. So there is that, but ultimately, I don't think it really added much to the overall story. Once again, it's nice, but kind of not necessary. Next up, we have Spare Parts number one, written by Sevet Roskov and David Murdoch, with artwork by Nicholas Brando. Now, apparently, this is actually a 0 issue, not a 1. It's apparently a sequel or a prequel to a movie that's coming out, and I'll tell you, this comic is awful. So if the comic's any indication, I can imagine the movie's pretty awful. Think of, like, low budget film, and like, say, like the Full Moon stuff, like Puppet Master and stuff like that. They're fine for what they are. But, doing a comic, you would think that you would actually, you have an unlimited budget, so you would maybe, like, hire people that, like, knew how to write a comic and how to draw a comic. But apparently, Behemoth did not do that here. This is really awful. I mean, it's like reading a bad movie. The script, so what it is there's this girl band, and they're at a gig, and there's this guy, that's like, oh, I love your band and everything. And then he chases him, drives him off the side of the road, where they end up in, like, say, a Thunderdome type thing where they have been modified. Their arms have been cut off and put, axes and chainsaws or whatever on there. And yeah, that's pretty much what, this sets up that movie. And if this is indication, I can imagine the movie is just a total piece of crap. Because because this comic is kind of a piece of crap. I mean, I really hate to dump on creators, but the story is just stupid and cliche, and I really feel bad because Brando. There's a couple times where the art's not too bad, but overall it's just kind of really inconsistent and just kind of sad to look at. You basically avoid this comic at all costs. It's just simply terrible. Next up, we have X-Men number one, written by Gary Dugan with artwork by Pepe Loraz. Now, this actually came out last week. I was going to review it last week. I totally forgot to pick it up, so we're doing it this week. Here's the thing. I always go back to whenever you launch, a new number one, especially with characters like X-Men. I feel that at a certain point, this should be somewhat of a gateway type comic where somebody who hasn't read X-Men or is not currently reading X-Men can kind of should one would hope to jump in and kind of get it. Now, admittedly, I will give Dugan that he uses a lot of like classic X-Men characters, Cyclops, Marvel Girl, and things like that, and Rogue, that people are familiar with, instead of like, ones that, like newer ones. And, I mean, there are other characters that you may not know, but that's fine because at least you have a couple of characters that you're familiar with. Now, the problem is that this all follows the recent, kind of rebooting of X-Men with Krakatoa and stuff. Now, I've obviously, read some of those and I'm a bit familiar, but the problem is going into this as a new reader, it's not that it's not new reader friendly, but there's obviously a lot of this backstory that goes with it that a person who has not read any of this, like reboot stuff recently is just going to be completely lost. And it's kind of a shame because, once again, Dugan does a nice job. The story's interesting and stuff. It's a pretty basic story. I'll definitely give him that there's, kind of an alien that comes down and, they basically, fight him and everything. And it's a smart story in that respect of keeping it simple. But with all the backstory that you don't know, you're kind of a little lost to what could be going on. He does explain things as it goes along, so that does help, but I wouldn't, it's kind of like, it's good, but I can't say that it's really greatly new reader friendly, which I think is a bit of an issue with it, in that respect. Otherwise it was, it was a decent story. I don't think it was, mind-numbingly brilliant, but I think it was decent. I will say, Larraz's artwork is actually really, really nice here. He does a really nice job. One of the things is X-Men instead of building a building, they actually build a giant tree house, which visually is really amazing. And, he does a really good job on, because there's a lot of times where there's just dialogue and stuff like that. And, then with the action scenes, it's a good looking book. I think the problem is it's just, I wouldn't really consider it a really, good starting point for a person who hasn't been reading X-Men for a while and hasn't been really keeping up with the book. If you have, then, you can kind of slide into this obviously pretty well. So that's kind of where it goes. And I really wish it'd been a little bit more new reader friendly. Next up, we have Beyond the Breach, number 1 written by Ed Brisson, with artwork by Damon Corsario. The best way to describe this book is if you've seen the movie The Mist by Frank Darabont, based on the Stephen King novel. That's really the basic premise for this. There's no gray area, obviously. I would have to assume that Brisson had been a big fan of the movie. But so what it is this woman, she's getting a divorce from her husband. He's cheated on her with her sister, and she's driving along, and all of a sudden, her car, it's like she hits something, in the middle of the road, and then is either transported or, portals open up, and all these monsters start attacking her, and there's other cars that this has happened to. So they're like the bugs and stuff they attack, and so she gets out of her car and gets away, and then she sees a car with it's eating, the bugs are eating people, and she sees a car with 2 kids where the parents are dead. She grabs the kids, she goes to like a park bathroom, locks themselves in, and then that's pretty much the premise of the story. There's, it's a setup. I mean, there's not a lot of, kind of meat to the bone here in that sense. I mean, Brisson does a good job of setting it up and gives enough reason to kind of come back. There's a nice twist at the end that I don't want to give away with the, kind of the monsters, how they, kind of trick the humans, which is really kind of a neat idea. Corsario's artwork is actually really quite nice here. It does a good job, and he's able to capture both like the expressions and the looks of the humans, but also draw some really cool monsters along the way. So, this first issue is good. I wouldn't say it blew me away by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it does a good job of setting it up, and I think there's a good reason to come back for the second one. So, I did enjoy it, just not, it's going to take at least another issue to kind of see where this one lands. Next up, we have Sinister War #1, written by Nick Spencer, with pencils by Mark Bagley, and then inking by Andrew Hennessy, John Dell, and Andy Owens. So this is, I haven't read Spider-Man in a long time. And the one good thing I'll definitely give Spencer is that this is pretty new reader friendly. I mean, you kind of, if you kind of know who this Sinister Six is, it's fine. But if you don't, he gives you like kind of enough. It's like, okay, it's a group of villains. It's like the Legion of Doom type thing. It's look, all these Spider-Man villains are ganging up to like, 6 villains to beat up on Spider-Man. That's pretty much what you have here. So, what it is they're at the premiere of Mary Jane's new film. And Mysterio was the actual director, but Peter doesn't know that. And so at that point, the Sinister Six come in, and they're like, oh, we're gonna crash this premiere, blah blah blah. And then this is a new Sinister Six. The original Sinister Six team comes in, and then everybody's just fighting everybody. So that's kind of what happens in this first issue. And it's fine. I wouldn't say. I mean, it's fun. It's silly. It's not mind-numbingly brilliant. But Spencer does a good job of just kind of having fun with it. It's just like you have Spider-Man beating up villains and then villains beating up other villains. So that's pretty much what this book is. I will say, Mark Bagley, it's been a little while since I've seen his artwork. It seemed to be a little inconsistent. Now, this could be because there's 3 different inkers on it, and that is a possibility. But it just seemed like, he maybe was a little looser or something. It's not bad artwork. It's nice, but, it just seemed like a little inconsistent to me, which, was a tad disappointing. But I don't think it's terrible by any stretch of the imagination. He does a good job of, bringing the fun that the script has to it. So, overall, it's a nice book. I wouldn't say it's mind-numbingly brilliant, but if you kind of want, I don't know if I'm assuming this is like a miniseries. Hopefully, if it's a miniseries, it's going to be a fun little ride for what it is. Next up, we have Savage Hearts #1, written by Aubrey Sitterson and artwork by Jed Daughtry. Now, normally I'm not. I want to kind of get one thing out of the way. There's a lot of kind of TNA here, and at the beginning, the one kind of a barbarian girl, does a big thing. Oh, it's so hot, and you don't see her breast, but I kind of found it a little insulting, even as a guy that the women characters were kind of weren't treated pretty well. And in the sense of, I'll compare it to, say, Bomb Queen by Jimmy Robinson. Bomb Queen knows exactly what it's doing. It's kind of an actual parody of all that. The problem I had with this one, this is not a parody, so that's kind of where I had the problem, is it felt, there were certain things about it that felt gratuitous. And on the other hand, the story was pretty basic. It's like, oh, they're lost and they're trying to find something. And then this one, this one guy comes to help them. And it's just a very basic story. And it's not bad, but it's like, I've read this story a million times. And, and Sitterson really didn't bring anything new to it. Daughtry's artwork is nice. It gets the job done. Obviously, he follows the script as far as like the TNA and the, that kind of stuff goes. Overall, it's kind of okay, but, I found it a little insulting a little bit with, it seemed a little gratuitous. It's not horrible, but I just felt that it didn't really add anything to the story. And I hate to say it, that Aubrey is a guy and he just, I don't know. So I wasn't overwhelmed. I don't think it's really worth checking out. Like I said, it didn't overwhelm me with the first issue. So next up we have Never Never #1, written by Mark McCann with artwork by Phil Buckingham. Now, this is a kind of a retelling of Peter Pan, but instead of telling like kind of a, like retelling Peter Pan like we've all seen before, this is actually a darker tone Peter Pan, where Peter Pan basically, basically brings Wendy to the island, but then actually Wendy is there's Peter Pan's like the bad guy. So, and what it is she, she ends up getting away. The Lost Boys are zombies basically. And so it's the Indians on the island that are actually roughly the good guys, and she ends up one of them saves her, and then they take her to the fort, and that's where the first issue ends. It's kind of an interesting take on the Peter Pan thing, where it's not it is kind of flipping it a little bit. McCann does a good job with the story. I think it's an interesting take. And I wouldn't say that I was overwhelmed with the story, but I enjoyed it for what it was. Buckingham's artwork is actually pretty nice. He does a good job of, having more of a darker tone to it, because obviously Peter Pan's more of a, kind of a, more of a fantasy, obviously most people know the Disney version. But, he does a really good job on the artwork, and it's nice. I think it's interesting. I think if you're looking for something a little different, when it, and you like the story of Peter Pan, then I think this one's worth kind of checking out. Next up, we have the Mouse Guard, the Owl, Caregiver, and Other Tales, written and drawn by David Peterson. Now, it's been a while since there's been a Mouse Guard book, and obviously I'm a huge fan of Mouse Guard, and they're really, usually he does like a storyline or a limited series. He's also done where other artists and writers have done Mouse Guard stories. So there's those. There's a lot of Mouse Guard titles available, but this one's actually really good because this is super new reader friendly, because there are 3 short stories in this, and they're all really good. They're all written and drawn by Dave, and they're just really, charming stories. He has a really good way of telling stories, kind of with a mythology. And the first one's actually very touching because it's a story about a caregiver, an owl that takes care of a mouse. And it's really, really a touching story. The next one is about the mouse trying to learn different animal languages, which is really, really interesting. And then the last one is a tale of a mouse that basically goes beyond where he's supposed to go. And it's roughly he says in the back that it's kind of a retelling of Peter and the Wolf. So those are the stories. If you've never read or seen Mouse Guard, I really recommend. This is actually a really good starting point because they're all short stories, and you don't have to really know any background. So they're really great, and his artwork is just absolutely stunning. You can see why he takes so long to do these books, because of the detail that he, puts into every panel, excuse me, of this book. And like I said, once you read this, you're going to want to go back and try to find, some of the other ones. It's just really stunning. And I highly recommend this. Next up, we have Space Pirate Captain Harlock #1. Based on the anime by Linji Matsumoto, adapted and written with artwork by Jerome Aoki. Now, I read the first issue of this, and this is it was really interesting. Obviously, it has a huge anime influence, obviously because of the source material, and visually it has. But I think what's interesting is it's not. I wouldn't say that the story was like the most brilliant thing I've read, but it's interesting because I remember, Captain Harlock back, when it was one of the early Japanese animated films that came over here. And I think he's a very interesting character. And what's interesting is, it's kind of this mythology of these aliens that they've been here they were here before man, and they basically been silent, and now they want to take over the earth. And that's the basic premise of the story. So this issue, we get to see a lot more Captain Harlock and, how he's actually trying to, defeat these aliens. So, it's not, it's, I think once again you have to have a fondness for anime, but I am really enjoying the story. I think it's a pretty basic story. There's not a lot of kind of newness here, but I enjoy it. The artwork is actually really nice. I'm not the biggest anime slash manga. I feel that a lot of it's kind of like you know too simplistic, but here it's really, the artwork by Aoki is just really, really nice and gorgeous looking, and it's really a nice book. And if it's something you're interested in, I think you should definitely check it out. Next up, we have Six Sidekicks of Trigger Keaton #2, written by Kyle Starks and with artwork by Chris Schweitzer. Now, I was a really big, huge fan of this first issue. I love this book. And the second issue, so what it is Trigger Keaton has been killed, and his sidekicks that he treated like complete crap are now trying to figure out, they know he was murdered, but yes, everybody hated because he was a complete asshole. But why was he murdered and who did it? So it's really interesting, to see, with this. And so what it is this issue, we meet one of the kids was, I guess he was like involved with like when he did a quote unquote Knight Rider series. And so Keaton left him the car, and so there's a giant car chase with other stuntmen trying to follow them, because there's people who obviously don't want them to figure out who killed him, and that we kind of learn a bit more in this issue. So I love Kyle Starks, and the scripts here are just fabulous. This is a wild and fun book that is just a complete and total blast. And Schweitzer's artwork just really is just fun. It has a very, kind of a cartoony style, but it totally is fitting what Starks is doing with the script. And just, the way he draws the characters and the action, everything, it's just, this book is a total blast, and I am just having so much fun with it. And it's really, I really recommend this. If you haven't checked it out, go find the first issue. The second issue came out this week. This is really a must buy. I really enjoyed this book. Next up, we have Infinite Frontier #2, written by Joshua Williamson with artwork by Paul Peltier penciling and Norm Rapman inking. And then we have the also the artist of Jesus Marino and Zermanico also doing the art. There's they split it up between themselves, or they do different chapters in the book. I actually did like this. This is kind of DC's semi-summer event. It's kind of a smaller event because it is taking place in this book. You don't have to read any other books. And what it is it's the aftermath of the death metal and the recreation of the multiverse, and how the multiverses are now kind of connected, and people know about the multiverses, and so that's basically what it is. And we have also that there's like a problem with the multiverse, and somebody's actually causing problems again. I won't say that this is, I don't know how many crises and multiverses and chaos the DC they have gone through, but this is another one. But it's kind of fun for what it is. You kind of know what you're getting into. I don't think once again, like I said with the first issue, I don't think you really need to know, have read the Infinite Frontier, any of that, previous future state stuff. It's just that this is pretty self-contained. You just have to know that DC has a multiverse, and it's kind of in chaos right now, and everybody knows about the multiverse. So that's really what you need to know. Like I said, they are, it is what it is. It's an event comic. It's decent. It's a fun read. Plus, you get to see a lot of different heroes from like the President, Superman from Earth, I don't know, 2348, whatever that one is. So you get to see some different characters, which is kind of neat. It's not it's not Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman per se. And in that respect, I like it. Once again, all three artists do a really good job. I mean, you can kind of tell the difference, but it's not a huge, they kind of do it in chunks. So it's not, it's not like they're doing one page and then somebody else does the next page. They're doing, kind of each like chapter or story point. So, it's all the art, they do a nice job and, keep it, going really well. So, it is what it is. If you're looking for something like an event comic that doesn't spiral into like 800 other books, you might want to check it out. It's fine for what it is. Next up, we have Skybound X #2 so there is Rick Grimes 2000 by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley. Then we have Birthright by Joshua Williamson and Andre Bresson. Then we have Everyday Hero Machine Boy Summer Days, written by Tri Vong and Irma Canelva, with Tri Vong as the artist. Then we have Stillwater, written by Chip Zdarsky, with artwork by Ramon K. Perez. Now, this is Skybound celebrating their 10th anniversary. Yes, we know that last year was their 10th anniversary, but we kind of had a bit of a pandemic, so they kind of, now it's this year. So what it is so there's the Rick Grimes 2000 story that is going to be in every issue. Each book comes out weekly. I believe there's 5 or 6 issues. I'm not sure. It's either 5 or possibly 6. And so that story will continue where each other one will have a short story by the original creators of the book. So the Rick Grimes 2000s, we learned that aliens have started the whole zombie apocalypse, and that, so kind of what the heroes like Rick Grimes and all the others, they're now basically like RoboCops, where they, part human, part machine, and they're, it's just battling zombies and aliens. That's exactly what it is. It's wild and fun and silly and stupid, and Ryan Ottley just draws the heck out of it. So that's a definite plus. The Birthright story is actually really interesting because the series has ended, but this is kind of a side story with his sister going to one place that he never went. And it's a sweet story. It's really nice. And it kind of, even if you haven't read Birthright, it stands on its own. You don't really need to know too much. And that's nice about these short stories, that they do make them, that they're accessible, by, people who haven't read those books. And I think that's part of what they're doing here, is kind of giving you a sampling. So in that case, if you like it, you can go back and, check the trades out. Now, the Everyday Hero Machine Boy, now that's a new story and a new character. What it is Skybound's creating a young adult line for both, kids and young adults. And that's what this one is. This is more their younger one, but it's basically, let's be honest, it's Astro Boy, kind of. And it's really a cute and charming story. I really love the artwork a lot. And really, sadly, the book doesn't come out till next fall, next year. So, that's disappointing, but this is a really nice taste. So I'm really, the two that they've shown so far, I think they've got, that their young adult line will get off to a really good start. And then finally, Stillwater is really interesting. That's a really intriguing book where this town is basically, if you go in there, you never age. So you kind of have the problem. It's like, that's great, but do you want to live forever? And that's the basic premise. And this story, it's, once again, it gives you a taste of what the book is like, but it's a self-contained story. It explains everything you need to know. And, and once again, I really hand it to the creators of ongoing books, that where they're just telling a short story in their universes, and they do a really good job. And I think it's great for, new readers to kind of check out all these Skybound books that they might have missed. And, it's really great. I really recommend these. These are really wonderful. The first issue was great. Second issue was great. I can't wait to, see more of them. Next up, we have Bunny Mask #2, written by Paul Tobin with artwork by Andrea Mutai. Now, this was really a creepy story. What it is there's this little girl and this guy well, her dad or adopted father, traps her and tortures her and makes her work in this mine, and then this doctor comes and eventually saves her. But while they're down in the mine, there's this weird creature, the bunny mask, and it basically kills the dad and saves them. And now, so years later, the doctor finds the girl. She's now grown up, and they have this bizarre connect. They have this connection. They remember, but she is also an artist who does these paintings and sculptures of the bunny mask creature. So it's kind of one of those things to where like his friend says, hey, you're an adult, she's an adult, you obviously maybe have this sort of attraction, but it really isn't that kind of attraction. That's what really makes it interesting. And we also find that this bunny mask also it wasn't just in the cave like these that there's a little side story where these guys are going to kidnap his ex's daughter, or his daughter too, because the mom's like bitch and everything, and the bunny mask creature finds him. So obviously it's protecting children, whether it's girls or kids in general, we're not quite sure, but obviously this creature has the creature spirit or whatever it is, obviously is protecting children. It seems to be girls at this point. So that's kind of an intriguing, there's a lot of spinning plates going on here, but it's really interesting. And once again, it kind of has a really kind of more creepy feel. There's some violence and stuff, but it's not bad. I really, Tobin's really coming up with a really interesting story, and I really like this second issue. Mutai's artwork is really, really good. I mean, he's been doing quite a few books lately, but and all of them are just really good looking books, and he has kind of an interesting, really neat art style. In a way, it reminds me a little bit of like when Gene Colan did Nathaniel Dusk, where he just did it in pencils. It kind of has a rough, real textural feel to it. And I really like that. And I really think it adds a lot to the story. And if you haven't checked it out, and if you like horror books, this is well worth checking out. Next up, we have Future State Gotham number 3, written by Joshua Williamson and Dennis Culver, with artwork by Giannis Malagilanis. Excuse me, it's a big word. Sorry if I mispronounce it. This is definitely still part of the Future State, and once again, it's we have the Red Hood undercover, and they're trying to figure out who has destroyed part of Gotham City. So you still have the police state going on, and then you have the Batman family trying to figure it out. And in the last issue, they get stuck in Arkham Asylum, so they're trying to fight their way out. And we finally do learn who is kind of behind it. It appears to be a new villain called Warwolf. So once again, your comic shop may be sold out of this book because of the speculation. Who knows? But so, once again, it's an interesting story. I wasn't a big fan of the Future State, but I am actually really enjoying this. I think a lot of it has to do with Mila Giannis's artwork. I like the fact that it's black and white. He obviously has a definite manga influence, but in here it really, really works. It gives it kind of a really gritty feel, which I think really benefits this book a lot. And also each issue does because the main story is a little on the short side, it does include a reprint of a Batman black and white story. So those are nice little bonuses if you haven't read those. Once again, Williamson and Culver, the story I'm really enjoying, considering how much I was not a fan of the Future State, especially the Gotham stuff. They're doing a good job here, and once again, the artwork is really nice. So I think it's still worth checking out. Next up, we have Scooby-Doo Batman Mysteries, or Batman Scooby-Doo Mysteries, pardon me, number 4, written by Sholly Fish, with artwork by Dario Berluzza. Now, this issue, once again, they're short and simple. They're Scooby-Doo Mysteries, and what it is this the villain this issue is the Black Mask, and what it is he has his goons running around in monster mask to pay a monster tax. And so what it is the next day there's a parade and they haven't paid the monster tax. So Black Mask has these monsters that come and attack, the town and the people and everything. And once again, it's time for Scooby and the gang, along with, now this issue doesn't have Batman, but it has Nightwing and Batgirl. So Batman does eventually show up towards the end. But, these are fun little stories. I really, Sholly Fish wrote the Scooby-Doo team-up book, which was absolutely just a blast. And he's doing the same thing here, except for, it's all, it's Batman, family characters. Brazula does a really nice job on the artwork, makes it look like Scooby-Doo. More so than, say, Batman the Animated Series, which, they're basically in the Scooby-Doo universe, so it makes more sense, I think. It's a fun book. It's a great all-ages book. It's, if you have kids, I highly recommend it. If you don't have kids, I still highly recommend it because it's damn fun if you love Scooby-Doo and Batman. So that definitely pick that up. Next up, we have Silver Coin number 4. This issue is written by Jeff Lemire and continued artwork by Michael Walsh. So, once again, each issue has had a different writer, but Michael Walsh has been the artist. But once again, I love the fact that each issue he has done a slightly different art style. And this one takes place in the future. And how do I... So what it is this girl basically, it's kind of like... how it's kind of like how a computer takes over a person, except for the computer, like, she has these worms in her eyes that goes into the person's eye, and they're able to, like, access their like bank accounts and stuff because they're accessing their brain computer. And that's the basic premise here. So I don't want to give much more away, but it's really interesting. I'm a huge fan of Lemire, as you all know. And he really writes an intriguing story, and it's interesting because, once again, there's an aspect of a coin that's in the story, but it isn't necessarily like, the entire crux of the story in some ways. It just has to have the coin in there at a point. Excuse me, which he does. So he does it really well. I really liked Walsh's artwork on this one, because he gives it a different style and has a really nice, kind of futuristic look, but a grungy futuristic look. I'm a huge fan, and once again, I love the fact that these are single stories. You don't have to read any of the first issues. You can just buy this issue by itself, and you can just read it by itself, and it's so worth checking out, especially if you're a horror fan. I really love this book to death. It's really wonderful. Next up, we have Joker number 5, written by Matthew Rosenberg and James Tynion IV, with artwork by Francisco Francavilla. And then there's a Punchline story written by Sam Jones and James Tynion IV, with artwork by Sweeney Boo. Now, I'll get it out of the way. I'm not loving the Punchline backup story. It's okay. It is what it is. It's part of the problem. It's a little too short. They're kind of telling a bigger story, and you're just getting, like 7-8 pages. It's just kind of not enough. Sweeney Boo is the new artist on this. He's fine. He's taken over for Mariko Andolfo. And, it looks nice and everything, but it's not really doing anything for me. I don't think it's bad. It's just not doing anything. Now let's get to the main story. Once again, we go back to, this is not a Joker book. It's a Commissioner Gordon book, but Joker sells. So this is, if you haven't been reading this, it's perfectly fine. Pick this issue up. Why? It is a complete standalone story. And it appears, I wouldn't say it's necessarily the first meeting of Commissioner Gordon and Joker, but it's very early. And also we get an early glimpse of Arkham Asylum. They give us a glimpse of this Arkham Asylum before it was Arkham Asylum. And it was more of, it was before they, sent the supervillains there. And so it's a really really damn good story. And then on top of that, you have Frank Avia's artwork, which is, I am a huge fan of him. He did Afterlife with Archie. He's done a ton of stuff. He was so perfect for this book. He gives it just a great feel, a great look. He's a brilliant artist and really made this story come alive. I mean, nothing against Rosenberg and Tynion. They came up with a really good story, but it all came together because Frank Avia's artwork that is just absolutely stunning. So even if you haven't been reading this, I really, really highly recommend this issue. You can read it by itself and not worry about reading any of the other issues. It really is just absolutely amazing. Next up, we have Ha Ha number 6, written by W. Maxwell Prince, with artwork by Martin Mazzaro and Chris O'Halloran. Now, once again, this is an anthology. Each issue it stands on its own, and you don't have to have read the first the any of the other issues. This stands on its own. What it is, the only thing is, it has to have a clown in it. Something about the story has to have a clown, and this one is about a clown who, he's down on his luck. His wife's divorced him. He got kicked out of his apartment. So the last gig he did, he went to go get a job, and the guy said, well, I'm not giving you the job. I gave it to so-and-so. And he goes, why? Well, because the last one you were sad and you cried and they didn't like you. And they want happy clowns, not sad clowns. So he's kind of at the end of his rope. And, it's kind of a story about, kind of depression and, how you can kind of see the world, how you choose to see the world. And I think the story-wise, it's very fascinating. I mean, it's kind of it is a depressing story, but it's a weirdly hopeful in the sense that, it shows you can choose to look at the world. The things suck in the world. Life is not fun, but it shows you can make it look better. You can look at it from a different way. Like, it's like making lemonade. If you have lemons, make lemonade. That kind of story. Basic premise. It's really, really a wonderful story. Prince is I've loved every issue of this. It's really been fantastic. Marazzo and O'Halloran, really, the artwork is really wonderful here. This has been a fabulous book. I really recommend it. If you haven't checked it out, if you can't find the issues, I know the trade of this will come out because this is the last issue, so it's only 6 issues. And once again, you can read any of the stories, and they've all been wonderful. So I really recommend checking out. Next up, we have Wonder Woman 775, written by Michael W. Conrad and Becky Cloonan, with artwork by Andy McDonald. And there is a backup of Young Diana that's written by Jordi Belair, and with artwork by Paulina Ganchu. Now, this is chapter 6 in the ongoing. Diana is obviously, she has been sent to other realms. At first, she was sent to Asgard. Now she's in where the gods are. So what she's doing, she actually she has. So in a way, it's kind of like Bill and Ted, where she's trying to get the gods back from, the graveyard, and she basically does a riddle thing with roughly death to get them back. She's able to answer. He asked her 3 questions and she answers them, and to be able to save the gods and bring them back. So that's the basic. That is what this issue is, and it was really, really quite good. I've been really enjoying this run that Conrad and Cloonan have been doing. This is a long term. This is a pretty long storyline that they've been doing, and it's actually held together really well. It's been really surprising. I mean, this is the second story arc, and then of course next issue we go to yet another kind of thing. So Diana's basically trying to get back to reality, or our world, however you want to put it. So, this is a long journey, and it's a long haul. This is one, you can't be jumping in, like on this issue or next issue to really get the feel of it. And that is always a catch-22 when you do a longer storyline like this. But like I said, I have to give it to Conrad and Cloonan that they're doing a really nice job here on the story. McDonald's artwork is actually really nice. I mean, obviously I'm a huge, I really like Travis Moore's artwork, but, he does a really good job here, and I think it's really nice. Once again, I'll say it again. I do really like the Young Diana story. It's really charming. It's an all ages type story. It's just not fitting with the main story, and it's a real shame. So I'm hoping that at some point they do reprint that as, kind of that young adult, that smaller format that they're used to. That, it's just not. They just don't go together, and it's a real shame because it is really good and I enjoy it, but it's kind of hard to read after the main story that is just so different from it. Next up, we have Black Hammer Visions number 6, written by Colin Bunn with artwork by Malchi Ward and Matthew Sheehan. Now, once again, these are side stories. They're single character stories. This one happens to do with Cthulhu, who is a plumber. And so Cthulhu is pissed that he's not doing anything. His wife is pissed at him because he's not doing anything. And she's pregnant with Cthulhu Louise, which, there was a one shot of that quite a while back. So basically this rat comes and, says, hey, Cthulhu's kind of pissed at you because you're not doing anything. And he's like, yeah, whatever. I don't care. He's like interrupting my TV time. And so what it is Cthulhu actually possesses a bunch of people to build this thing that he wanted Cthulhu to build. And it ends up, he saves the day and everything. But it's really a fun story. And it's interesting because Bunn is obviously known for like writing horror stuff, and obviously, a Cthulhu story is right up his alley. But what's really this is like a goofy story, like underneath. I mean, there's definitely kind of semi, creepy aspects to it, especially when you see Cthulhu and stuff like that. But it's really fun, and the artwork was really, really nice. I really have to give it to Sheehan and Ward. Their artwork is this is a really good looking book. Once again, these are one and done. You don't have to really know much about Black Hammer, because each story is, you just have to know that he's like got a Cthulhu head, and and that's all you really need to know. It's really wonderful. Props to everybody all around. I'm really enjoying this book, and I love how each group, decides they pick their characters and do the story. It's just wonderful. I really highly recommend this. Next up, we have Carmen #5, written and drawn by Guillaume Marsh. Now, I think this book came out this week, but it just, my shop got it this week, so I don't know. But either way, this is the last issue, and I really don't want to give anything away, but I can basically tell you that we learn that Carmen is really, kind of karma in a way, in the sense of that. So, like her supervisor and stuff are pissed because she takes too much time. But what she actually does is try to help each soul. And in this case, the girl that she's helping has more life to go. And I really don't want to give any more away, but this book has been absolutely wonderful. I mean, Marsh's artwork obviously is the main draw, but the story, this one was really a deep issue. There was a lot to digest in this issue. It was very, I will say, if you read it, just take your time, because there's a lot going on here. There's a lot of explaining of what this was all about. And it ends so well. It ends so beautifully. And it's just, it was really a heartfelt story. And it's interesting because I think you don't realize that in the beginning, but as it goes along, there's more and more you learn. And it's really wonderful. If you haven't checked it out, I really say, when the trade comes out, pick it up. Obviously his art's the big draw, but the story has been really, really wonderful. I really, really recommended this book. And finally, we have Rorschach #10. Written by Tom King with artwork by George Fornes. Now, the last issue really opened up where, what was going on. This issue, the detective sits down with, the guy who hired him, and we learn everything. We learn who the body was buried in the desert. We learn about who was trying to assassinate Robert Redford's opponent for president. And I really don't want to give anything away, but this issue opens up. I mean, the last issue blew the door off of it, and now with these final issues, King is really getting into what this story is about. I mean, the irony is it's really not about Rorschach per se. It is, but it isn't. It's really, the best way I can kind of describe it, it's like it's a political thriller, in a lot of respects. It kind of reminds me of, say, All the President's Men, which is really, I mean, that's impressive because, it's a great story. It's a great film. And King has really done a wonderful job here of, like I said, it really reminds me a lot of the Watchmen series that HBO, that Damon Lindelof did, where, he's going to this universe, but he's not, he's not trying to make a sequel. He's not, he's not treading where Watchmen started. And it's just, this book has been absolutely amazing. Fornes's artwork just continues to just blow me away. He really just continues to, like, once again, this issue is about somebody, just talking about what's going on. It's very, it's not so much dialogue heavy, but it's just people talking for the most part. There's not a lot of action, but, he is able to just, like, bring it all to life and just really capture every nuance of King's script that just this book just continues to blow me away. It's so amazing. And I can't recommend it enough. If you have not been reading it, then all I got to say is shame on you, because it's really that damn good. So that's going to do it. We got through a lot of books this week. Sorry for the long-winded. I know it's tough, and I apologize if I've messed up anybody's name. It's really hard to do this on the fly for the most part. But we'll always end it as we always do. Public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics Long Beach. You can check out their website. If you live locally, they have a great pull service. Ryan and Annie run a great store. It's really just, it's great. They have a great Facebook group page. Every Tuesday they do unboxing and they talk about all the new comics coming out. Definitely check them out on their social media and everything. Also, they have a sister store in Culver City, Pulp Fiction Culver City, run by Chris and her team. They're the same name, but they are separate stores. They're owned by different owners, but they have a great pull service. They offer discounts on their graphic novels. They're both really good stores in LA. If you live near them, I highly recommend checking them out. And once again, please get vaccinated if you can. Things are looking a little rough here with the Delta variant that seems to be taking hold, where it really seems to be affecting unvaccinated people and younger people. So please, if you can, get a vaccination. It's very, very important. We need to really get over this, because things are starting to not look good again. And I have been vaccinated. I continue to wear my mask out in public. I just don't want to take chances, even though I'm vaccinated. But please be safe, get vaccinated, social distance, and just be careful out there. And as always, please be kind. Things are still rough out there in lots of different ways, but being kind doesn't cost anything, and it can really make somebody's day. So that's how we're going to end it again, as we always do. Thanks for watching. Please share, like, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, our YouTube channel, which is great. It's always well appreciated. And just be safe and be kind. Take care, and we'll do it again next week. This is Steven for Pop Culture Maven signing out. Thanks a lot.